gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Geek Syndicate, where we're doing what we always do, bringing the sass back to geekdom. I am Monts, and with me, as always, is...
I am Nuge.
Alright.
Yeah.
Alright, Nuge.
Alright, Monts.
Yeah. That's it. So, yeah, that's all I've got.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, so we are just popping in to do a special episode to talk about episode 5 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Was it episode 5?
It was episode 5.
It was episode 5 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. And I suppose I want to start by saying this. The reason I think it's important for us to do this is I found that episode incredibly emotional. And I think it's one of the most important things, not in terms of entertainment, but in terms of some of the things it's trying to say. I think it's one of the most important things Marvel has done with the MCU.
Yeah, and likewise, because it's kind of, it really, even though I knew kind of, as the show's been going, they've not even hinted, do you know what I mean? They've been hitting stuff. And it has affected me, but this episode, it just hit me. Do you know what I mean? It was like a 1-2 punch. It properly hit me. And certain bits there were bits I was like raging at the screen. There were bits where I was like just choked up, close to tears. And then there were bits where I was kind of like just fist bumping the air. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I got to talk to Dave about it. Do you know what I mean? Normally we would just, obviously we do GS and we do the podcast and we chat, but there's a lot of things that, there's a lot of conversations that the listeners aren't a part of that we just have that are just between me and you know what I mean, as mates. And I kind of wanted to have that conversation with you, but then at the same time, I was kind of like, I kind of want other people to listen in on the conversation, because I think we're going to talk about things that we don't normally talk about. You know what I mean? Certainly not within a podcast environment, because there are our own personal views and thoughts and And I just thought, actually, it almost felt like the universe was just saying to us, look, just put it out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
I'm going to go so far. I'm just going to reframe this. So for me, the Black Panther movie is up there in the Marvel canon. It's right up there. Not only because I enjoyed the film, but because it delivered something I'd been moaning about and asking for.
Yeah.
For years. So I'm like, I'm not going to look at that and go, I'm not going to go. I mean, are there plot holes? Maybe. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I was asking for. I'm not going to spend my time cussing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, it was the fact that there's a black nation who's black. It's full of black people, but it's not a black movie. It's a movie about a nation that sequestered themselves from the outside world. Yeah. This nation happens to be a black one in Africa, and that's what I want. I don't want it to be black this, black that. It's just about people, and they're good. It's not about black anger. It's not about this or that. I know someone does represent that. It's just people who are black doing brilliantly, and I'm like, that's what I've been asking for as an actor. That's what I've been asking for as a consumer. So to me, that was an incredibly not just good and entertaining film, but an important film, because it did things that so much of the genre hasn't even come near to hit in head on. And then this comes along. Where do we start?
I think for me, before we kind of get into it, to kind of like give a alternate view. Do you know what I mean? Not to say I agree with everything you said about Black Panther. I think when we get into it, I think why this affected me in some ways more, because I'm not American. You know what I mean? I'm a Londoner, well, ex-Londoner, Northampton now. Do you know what I mean? But it felt much more closer to my own journey. Do you know what I mean? And my own experiences, even though this is happening to like a black guy in another country, it's kind of like a lot of that stuff that they were touching on, I'm like, I felt that, you know what I mean? And certainly on a personal family level, which we'll get onto it, there's a couple of scenes that really hit me personally, So let's get into it. So obviously, there's going to be spoilers, you know what I mean? So if you don't want to be spoiled, then skip on, come back when you've watched Winter Soldier. Well, when you've watched the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 5. So this has been coming for a while, but the episode opens after that like brutal end to episode 4, which I was quite shocked that Marvel went that far in a show that's on Disney Plus. Do you know what I mean? I was quite shocked that they'd gone that far, and I think that final shot of Walker with the shield and the shield's covered in blood is just says it all. And even though you knew there was a throwdown coming, I think what I was quite surprised about to begin with was the fact that actually, I mean, Bucky just wanted to get in there and just dish out some licks. Do you know what I mean?
There was this bit, I'll see this meme, and it just cracked me up. It's like where John Walker is saying, you know, because you're going to stop me, and like, and Bucky's like, yeah, we are. And someone just put a picture of like Sam giving him the side eye going, we? Because like, one of us ain't got no super soldier serum going on, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, please.
And to be fair, I always wondered that. You've got this guy called John Walker, you put him in the Captain America suit, yeah? And you sent him out to fight the threats that Steve Rogers was fighting, and he ain't got no powers.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Yeah. But also,
I'm going to come back to that when we talk about Sam's future. But
yeah. But also as well, I think at the core of it, I think what these episodes up to this point was showing you is that, you know, Captain America or Steve Rogers, do you know what I mean? It was more than the super soldier serum. It wasn't just a case of stick a needle in your arm, give a man superpowers, he's going to be like Captain America, even though he's, you know, the blue-eyed golden boy soldier. Do you know what I mean? And I think when you watch the first Captain America film, there's actually a scene where the Tommy Lee Jones character, who's like the general, is pointing out a guy going like, this is the guy we should be having. And the professor is sort of going, do you know what I mean? We've had a lot of like soldiers, lot of big men. Maybe it's time for a little guy. Do you know what I mean? And that's when you didn't have the scene where he throws the grenade and then Steve dives on the grenade.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think what Walker is who Captain America would have been had that professor not had a say in it.
Yes.
That's who they would have picked.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I find, that's what I found really interesting, because it is that kind of like, this is the guy we would have got. And I think one of the interesting points that Zemo made, and I thought he's been a really interesting character, because some of the stuff he said,
I've just loved his groove, man.
You know what I mean? Some of the stuff that he said, I'm like, I know he's supposed to be a villain, but my boy's making some points, man.
I know.
And I think when he kind of said, you know, he gave this whole speech about being superhuman and about being a supremacist and stuff like that. And then, you know, and Bucky had sort of said, yeah, well, that never happened to like, you know, that never happened to Steve Rogers. And he just went, yeah, but has there ever been another Captain America? And it was just like, ooh.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
It goes, has there ever been another Steve Rogers?
That's like, it, yeah.
You know what? If you're going to give it to someone.
Yeah. he literally every argument he won. And I thought it was, and again, we'll get onto Sam's origin stuff, but I think it's really interesting the conversation he had with Sam, where he sort of said, if you were given, if you were offered the super soldier serum, would you take it? And he was like, no. And he was like, you didn't even, you know what I mean? You didn't even think about it. He goes, impressive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they throw down, and it was a quality fight, because what was good about it is everybody got worked.
Yeah.
It was a proper brutal fight. Go on.
So this is what, can we get into Sam's future now?
No, we got to work to it, man. We got to work to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think I know where you're going with, but I think I've got a rebuttal to that. So I want to work up to it.
I'll look forward to that.
You know what I mean? So it was a proper throwdown. And I think what was good about it was that even though obviously Sam has no powers, obviously, other than his own innate kind of combat skills and the wings and stuff, I think they used it really well.
I mean, no, his manipulation of the wings was stellar, man.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was like, now I believe that this non-powered guy can get into a fight with two super soldiers.
Yeah.
I kind of believe, because and you go, actually, you know what? The way he's using it, this guy's just smart. His brain is quick. Do you know what I mean? It's just like...
And even when he was using it to power it to take the shield off him, do you know what I mean? He was boosting up his rocket so he could have enough leverage to try and get the shield off him. Yeah, man.
Yeah, no, I was like, yeah, nice.
Yeah. So, he gets the whooping. Walker gets taken down. They take the shield off him, and this is my first sort of where the race was hitting me. It was Walker's trial, or if you can call it that. Where he kind of turns up and they kind of cuss him and they take away like the Captain America title and blah blah blah, and the only reason you're not being court-martialed is because of your record. And he then turns around and cusses them and says, you made me and blah blah. And I think the way they've done his character is really good because he's an arse, he's an arse and all the rest of it, but he was proper feeling it because his mate had just been killed before his eyes, and he was clearly his mate.
Yeah.
Plus on top of it, it was all the weight that had been piled onto him to like live up to the fact that he was now supposed to be picking up the mantle of Steve Rogers. I mean, come on, that
is a lot of weight.
It weren't gonna happen. It was doomed from the start, really, which was part of the reason why.
It's like because we've been having a long chat on Facebook in our group about recasting or not recasting Black Panther, and I was like, I'm all for a recast, but I would not want to be the one following in Chadwick's footsteps, man, because that would be. And I was like, yeah, that's pressure, man.
No.
I mean? Like, there's a similar pressure here.
It's a similar, and it was just never. It was, even though obviously the show scripted it, for it, it was never going to end well. It was never going to end well, and I thought his response to it all, and he's just cussing, and then he just walks out. And I remember, and I turned to Sue, and I just went, "Now imagine if that had been a brother." They would have thrown the book at him.
For real, man. For real. It's...
and I was just sitting there. I was like, hang on a minute. He literally killed a dude in cold blood.
But also, you know what? And the thing is, it was only long afterwards I just went, hold on. And they drew a parallel between the police killings we see. Because I've literally, because people keep going on about George Floyd. Yeah, like, this is this terrible thing that's happened. I'm like, this is the latest I've been seeing these things since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, what happens is you see these videos and you go, wow, there's no way they're not going to convict that guy. And then they don't.
Yeah.
And it was only a little while afterwards, I was sitting and suddenly my brain went click. And I just had to sit for a moment going, yeah, that's the harsh truth, man.
Yeah. And we grew up at a time, where there was a riot 5 minutes up the road from me, which was the Broadwater Farm riots. Obviously, some people will remember listening, some people won't. If you don't know, go and look it up. Broadwater Farm riots, 1980s. Police officer was killed. This was 5 minutes from where I lived, and I remember the night of the riot, coming out of my house and seeing the flames and seeing the police kicking off and just, kind of, and just afraid, But what people forget is the run up to it, what caused it.
And it wasn't a short run up.
It wasn't. It was years,
I think this is what gets me, because it's exactly the same as George Floyd. Everyone's going, oh, George Floyd, he wasn't a saint. I'm like, the fact that it was George Floyd wasn't the issue. The fact is that this is the latest in a long, like, this isn't coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if people get a bit angry and things break out, what did you expect?
Yeah.
Because you didn't change shit when it needed changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway,
so as you can tell, we got stuff to say. But like, so you had that whole kind of sequence, and he gets away with it. He gets away with it. He kind of walks out scot-free. Yeah, okay, they've kind of said you can't be Captain America anymore, but you still got your freedom. And then he gets offered, that woman.
Then he gets offered some work.
Yeah, that woman who introduced herself as a countess or whatever. She was in. I remember her from back in the day from the comics. She used to always be up with Nick Fury. She was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
What was her name again?
Oh, all I know in the comics, she was called Val, but she was the countess. And It was always like her, Nick Fury, Dum Dum Dugan. Do you know what I mean? And these are like way back when I used to read them as a kid. That's why I recognised her. The minute she can't introduce her name, I kind of perked up, and she was like, "Who's that?" And she paused it, and I had to explain to her. Now, obviously, they haven't.
Oh, I'm looking at. I just see. Goodness.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Now, obviously, you know, I mean, they haven't made that.
oh, sorry, because I just remember her name now, like Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they haven't made a Shield link clear.
Yeah.
She was always into some other shady business as well. So
according to this, she's been around since 1967.
That's what I mean. I was reading it in the 70s when it was my brother getting the comics. This was back when it was Jim Steranko was doing the art and all that. But anyway, so you had all that, and the sort of, I'm trying to think what happens after that. But basically, they go back to New York, don't they? They go home or whatever. And I'm trying to think if Bucky's scene is after he talks to. It is. Sam goes to see Isaiah.
So Isaiah,
and I think that was where I started, man.
This is the one that had me. This conversation stayed with me for days.
Yeah.
So just to begin with, Isaiah Bradley was played by Carl Lumbly, and I just want to give him his props.
Yeah.
So my boy's been on TV for time.
From Alias, man.
Alias. But he was also in Justice League Doom.
Yeah, he was also in the Justice League. Wasn't he Martian Manhunter?
It was Martian Manhunter in Justice League Doom. It was Silas Stone, who is Cyborg's dad, in Justice League Gods and Monsters. He was in an episode of BJ and the Bear. Does anyone remember that?
Sounds familiar.
BJ McKee and his best friend Bear. It's about a trucker who trucks around the country with a monkey called Bear. No one remember that?
I remember BJ and the Bear. I didn't actually remember the plot of it.
Yeah, that
Wow, that just sounds overly convoluted, man.
Right. He was in Superman the animated series. He was in Batman Beyond. Yeah. He was in Justice League again as Martial Manhunter. 105 episodes of Alias. He was in Static Shock as Nancy the Spider and Martial Manhunter. Justice League Unlimited again. Episode of Battlestar Galactica. Batman the Brave and the Bold as a tornado. Supergirl as Martial Manhunter's father.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give Carl his like superhero geek cards.
Yeah. He's been putting the work in, man. Putting the work in.
So Isaiah Bradley.
Yeah. So I've talked enough about it. So you take this, man.
So Isaiah Bradley. Now I first came across it when was that? 2003. A comic came out called Truth, Red, White, and Blue, and I can't remember it very well, but I remember reading it and just like, damn, one of those ones that makes you a bit angry. So Isaiah Bradley, so way back before Steve Rogers, he was one of 300 African-American soldiers experimented on by the US Army trying to create super soldiers. Now, this was a blatant cry to the Tuskegee syphilis study. Have you heard of this, B?
I don't think... Because I know the Tuscany Airmen.
Nah, so what they did here, so they went to Tuskegee. Tuskegee always it's bad. It's not the place to come from, is it? So basically, they between listen to this. This was a study conducted between 1932 and 1972. That's no short period of time.
No.
Yeah. By the United States Public Health Service and the CDC. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It has been claimed to be the most ethically abusive study ever. President Bill Clinton formally apologized on behalf of the United States to the victims of the study, calling it shameful and racist. So basically, they had a bunch of men, 300, a total 600 men, all poor African-American sharecroppers. Yeah, from Alabama. Tuskegee, yeah. And they told them that it was going to be a study that was going to last 6 months. It was extended to 40 years. Yeah. They didn't tell them that they were injecting them with syphilis.
I think I have heard this now.
To study the effects of syphilis. They were told they were receiving free healthcare from the government. They were not. So this was a straight up parallel to the
Yeah.
Tuskegee syphilis study, and go look it up. It's horrific, and the more you read about it, the more horrific it gets. And you like how do humans do this with government backing? Well, deal with that. So he was one of those, and he was sent in, and of all of them, he was the only one whose super serum worked properly. Eventually, now the comic does deviate a little bit from the TV show, or I should say the TV show deviates a little bit from the comic. So that's the one we're going to be focusing on. But there was this great bit where I can't remember whose wedding it was in the comics. I think it might have been Black Panther's wedding, where Isaiah Bradley turns up, and those that know who he is were like in awe, and like apparently Luke Cage was going, "He's the first me." Do you know what I mean? They're totally like. It's like Muhammad Ali walks.
Yeah.
It's like just the thought of that, and so I love that. So in the comics now, something happened, and his brothers, his boys that he got experimented on with him, got captured, got put in. I can't remember now because it was so much to take in at the time. Now he goes to get his boys out, and for his troubles, he gets court-martialed and put in prison. They pretended that he was dead so that no one came looking for him, and they experimented on him for however many years till some nurse took pity on him, helped him out, and just kind of faked his death. And now he's living undercover, pretending to be dead, can't do nothing, and he's still got his strength, he's still got his super soldier stuff. So my boy is bitter and he's angry.
So just to stop you there before we carry on, one of the things I found really quite, moving, angry about that parallel. So Captain America, the first Avenger film, was one of my favorite of the MCU films. Do you know what I mean?
I know where you're going now,
right?
and
I really like that film. So I know that film. Do you know what I mean? I know that film.
Yeah.
So when he was talking, and he was like, you know what I mean? My boys were in a POW camp, and they told me to leave them, and I'm like, I'm not having that. They're my brothers. I'm not leaving them in there. So I broke ranks and went and got them. And then he lifts up his shirt, and he's like, and this is my reward, you know. And they took him and experimented him. And I was like, hang on a minute, Captain Steve Rogers did exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing, and we get that.
He got proper props for it, man.
Well, no, we got that boom scene of him walking in, and all the POWs are behind him. Let's hear it for Captain America, and the music's going, and when you see it, don't get me wrong, it's a great scene.
It is.
It's a great crowd-rousing scene. But now, when I watch that scene when I watch that film again, which I will, Isaiah's going to be in my mind now, because I'm going to be like, well, my boy did the same thing.
The same thing.
And that was his reward. Oh man!
And what I'm loving. So there's a phrase, I don't use it often, but I'm gonna say it. It's that phrase of kind of white privilege. And so far, we've seen that twice now. We've seen a man walking out of the courtroom, and we've seen the difference between original Cap and Steve Rogers Cap. Yeah. I'm not going to say the black Captain America, because really you could say that Steve Rogers is the white Captain America, because we already had one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you see that at play, and you see that my boy, just to get through his day, has to stay dead, has to pretend to be dead. Yeah. While Captain America is lauded the world over.
Yeah.
So, I don't even know what to say, because I just feel.
So I think the thing is, it's kind of like, it's easy to sort of just use the word bitter, but I think that's doing him and I'm saying that because it's doing him a disservice. I think he's angry. He's all the emotions that you could think of. Do you know what I mean? This country has failed him, big time.
It's beating him.
He's beating him. He's just kind of like, you know what? I've got no time for it. I've got no time for it. And if you want to be a part of that, that's your business. But you need to know, you know what I mean? This is the legacy of it. Why would you stand up for these? You know what I mean? Why would you want that mantle? Because this is what that mantle represents. Now, obviously, from Sam's coming at it from a different point of view, obviously, because he's younger, he's coming up in the world now, but also he knows the man that carried the shield.
So, just want to stop there because I just want to go because there was something that Sam said and Isaiah's response to it. It's the bit I almost cried at. Yeah, and it's when Sam goes, "Well, I know people. We got to do something. We got to do something." And I was like, "Do you think I haven't already tried everything?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, and for me, it reminds me of so many conversations that happened again after George Floyd died.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of my white friends just going, "Oh, how'd you live with it? You got to do something. You got to do something."
Yeah,
I'm
I know.
Man, I've been doing something since I was 17. Yeah, no, since I was 8 years old, I've been talking about this shit, telling me I've got to do something now. And I get that it's all with the best intentions. That's fine. You know, I mean, I'd rather people did get upset about it than not. But I need people to understand this ain't new. And I made these videos and I remember saying, it was quite nice to have a lot of my white friends checking in with me to see I was okay. None of my black friends did. Do you know why? Because this is just, you said this, he goes, because it's just Tuesday.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This ain't nothing new to us.
It's not, yeah. And I'm glad that I'm glad that, some of our white friends and whatever. And I had conversations around this when I was kind of explaining things and explaining my experiences, nearly being arrested for armed robbery, blah, 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 and all these, and 100 stories, that every black person in any corner of the world will tell you. My story. I can almost hear people who listen to this podcast. I've just said I nearly got arrested for armed robbery. My mate was already in the back of the van. And if I hadn't had an airtight alibi, I was actually working at the time for the Salvation Army, that would have been my ass in jail. Now, you could choose to believe the story or not. It's 100% true, along with many other stories that I could tell you. But it's not a unique story to me. All my mates had stories like that. My brothers had stories like that.
40 times in 1 year I got stopped by the police in my car. 40 times.
But like when all of this really came out, and like you said, with social media now, I had a lot of white friends going, "You okay?" Blah blah blah. How can I don't understand. You must. I don't know how you can get through your day. Oh, I don't know how you can do it. I'm so angry. I'm like, because I haven't got a choice. Because you can have the anger, then you can get over the anger and get on with your, get on with your life. I haven't got that luxury. I can't just turn it on and off like a light switch. I got to get on with things. I got to get on with my life. You know what I mean? But anyway, kind of coming back to this conversation really, really affected me, and I didn't know why at the time between the two of them, and it's because weirdly, as we record today, it's just a happenstance that today is 9 years ago today, I buried my oldest brother. So it was David's funeral today. And you don't know this, but in the year before Dave passed, we stopped talking to each other.
Did you?
Yeah, we stopped talking to each other. And to this day, it's kind of one of my biggest regrets because I never knew why. I don't know what happened. We fell out, and I honestly don't know what happened. We didn't have an. We just stopped talking, and it probably was, I don't know, a few months before he passed, and we kind of started talking again. And I don't even know what the catalyst was for that once, but we started talking again. And he's 10 years, he was, but he's 10 years older than me. So there's always that kind of age gap. And I was the youngest, he was the oldest. And we had a conversation right once, and it was probably the most honest conversations I'd had with my brother, in that it was the first time he admitted to me the weight that he had on his shoulders of being the oldest out of, four of us, because all of us, all four brothers or whatever. But he was the first, and at a time where wherever he was going, he was always the first. He was always the first blackface. Yeah, especially because he went into IT, and which is where I followed him into IT. I literally followed in his footsteps. He took me to where he worked when I think I was 11 or something, and it was so cool. Everyone knew him, and he was like a spy to me. And I was like, I want to do this, and that's why I decided I wanted to go into computers, and I did eventually. What I didn't know was that when he'd spoken to Dad about it, that he wanted to go into more office work or do and go into IT and stuff. And if my other brothers are listening, I hope I'm not disrespecting Dad or Dave. I'm not. I'm just telling the story as Dave told me, you know. And Dad said to Dave, you know, why would you want to go out into the white man's world? Right?
I'm seeing the parallels.
And so, and they had a big argument over it and stuff like that. And obviously Dave did go forward. Now, I'm drawing the parallel of, you know what I mean, my dad and Dave to Isaiah and Sam.
Yeah.
I hear you. I want, as you listen, we're going to carry on now, but as you I want you to kind of have that in your head for when we get onto some of the Sam stuff later, because that's when I've got another bit to say on this, which is the bit that I kind of had me in tears. Do you know what I mean? I'm kind of choking up, sort of thinking about it. But no, that scene between the two of them was pivotal, because there wasn't a right or a wrong.
No, and that's what I loved about it as well. It's like, you know, because I mean, later on when Sam's sister is talking to him about, you know, doing what he thinks is right rather than what Isaiah thinks is right, and that's not asking you to choose sides, because both sides are right and understandable, utterly understandable. Whichever way, whichever turn you take, it's understandable, utterly, totally. And justified.
Yeah.
And I just, it was, yeah. And I love that he said what it is, and you kind of think, are you asking me to agree with what Isaiah says? Because I am, but you're not really, because you're still showing me more stuff. And are you asking me to agree with Sam later on? But I could still disagree with Sam.
Yeah.
And whichever one I agree with, I could utterly justify.
Yeah. And I think
it was really, I mean, I've never seen TV like that in something like in a superhero show, because I think of Supergirl, and it was like they had an issue a week, and then they would turn that issue into a steel bar and beat you around the back of your head with it. Whereas this was like, let me give you this question, you go off and think about it now. Come back in 5 minutes because I've got another question for you.
Yeah, you go do the work. We'll be here.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll wait. Think about it. I'll wait. I'll be right. I've been waiting for 50 years.
Yeah, there's a drink at the bar for you. Yeah. And like, and you know, when I gotta find the quote for it. It's a quote. That's it. So what? And this will end this scene, then we move on. And it was kind of like, this is what Isaiah says, you know, they were worried my story might get out, so they erased me in my history, but they've been doing that for 500 years. Pledge allegiance to that, my brother. They would never let a black man be Captain America. And even if they did, no self-respecting black man would ever want to be. That, do you know what I mean? That was just, and you just see it on Sam's face. You just see the kind of just, I don't even know where to begin with that.
No. How you unpick all of that?
You know, and so
but, I mean, it is that, and you know, it's that whole line about erasing history, and you go, well, it's a bit dramatic, innit? Once you start looking at history, you see how much is actually erased. And I think there's a lot of conversations that came out of the Black Lives Matters things, and you know, there were some really understanding people trying to understand more and do it, but there were also, you know, a certain specific set of white people who kind of dug their heels in and went, well, this isn't that, this is that, this is that. And I'm like, you have no idea of actual history, because if you knew, and if you read, and if you took it seriously, you would have nothing but humility. Because there's some, I mean, I'm not even going to start listing stuff, but I could. Do you know what I mean? You go, what? But that looks like, you know what that looks like? That looks like a deliberate attempt to, yes, it does. It does. Do you know what I mean? And we're still reaping the consequences of that, because that's ingrained in the way the power system works. You know, and I'm here, man. I'm a part of it. I'm not running away from that. I'm not saying there's things that shouldn't be done, campaign for whatever, but our starting point is to understand that those things are endemic to the way we live. Anyway, next scene.
So again, this is a scene.
Can I just say, sorry,
Yeah.
you remember I said about Isaiah Bradley turning up at a wedding and like people like wow, just total awe, and Luke Cage like what? And it just said Wolverine had no idea who he was or what he'd done. You know what I mean? I was like, okay.
It says it all.
Yeah.
And then I think we get, even though we start with a massive action set piece, it's quite a quiet episode in a lot of ways. And we get this whole sequence, which I thought was brilliant, where he goes back home to see his sister and stuff. And it's all about like his mum and dad's sort of boat and whatever. And he does this thing where he rings around the community. And he's like, I'm Wilson's, I'm the youngest, you know what I mean? We've got a problem, come and help out. And there's a bit where one of them goes, well, look, I heard, you know what I mean? I heard the Wilsons were in trouble, do you know what I mean? So I had to come out and help out. And you just have this brilliant scene of just the neighborhood turning out to help them kind of fix up the boat. And then Bucky rocks up and everyone's having a beer and just doing stuff, And like, again, it's this thing of, personal connections. And I remember, and obviously we both know, we've both been there for each other when our, you know what I mean? For you, it's your dad. For me, it's my man, dad. Do you know what I mean? But I'll talk about mum more because that was the first big sort of loss, And I remember, because you came to mum's funeral, innit? And I remember, like, you don't always realize when you're you don't always realize when you're a child, you don't realize the legacy that your parents have created, Yeah. And honestly, I thought my mum was amazing. Right? Because I would never have been a writer. I would never have done the things that had it not been for mum kind of saying, you need to just get out there and do don't worry about your brothers. Don't worry about people thinking you're the geek, you're the weird one. You just do what you believe in. So I did. And I stuck to that, So in my mind, that was mum's legacy to me, When I turned up at that church, there weren't even standing room.
Yeah, I remember.
It was like 300 people, and we came outside, and there were people outside, and then that whole day I had people coming up to me telling me stories of how mum had helped them out, or how mum had done this, how mum had done that, and then some of the talks people had said about kind of the fact that she'd had 4 sons in the middle of Tottenham, and you know what I mean, and we'd all kind of made good, and that had been because of their influence and stuff like that. It was just so legacy is important, and I thought that scene really kind of typified that idea of even though we'd never met Sam's parents, the legacy was there. You know what I'm saying? And the conversation he has with his sister, I think is probably the most pivotal thing in that episode.
Which conversation?
It's the conversation where he said, I think I'm trying to think which one of them says about the 2 wars, where he kind of says there's the war at home, there's the war out there, and there's a war at home.
Yeah.
And he was sort of saying to her, like, every time I looked at you, I always felt like you were thinking that I was running away. And then she sort of said, you know what I mean? Look, the whole time I've known you, you'd never run from anything. You know what I mean? You've just let, and you've let Bradley get in your head. You've got to be your own man, basically. Make your own choice.
Yeah, and
then live with that choice, And
she says that line. She goes, "Are you still letting that old man get in your head?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because is she, I don't know, is she rubbishing his perspective? What was happening there, or was she just saying, regardless of what you're told, you have to take the decision that sits right with you?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a point of view. You have to decide what you do with it. And that's kind of how I like to feel she was coming at it. Do you know what I mean? I think after that, you then got the scene, which I thought was another brilliant scene, where you had him and Bucky, and they were just tossing the shield.
Oh man! I mean, I just want to go back and just give. It was something I saw, which I thought was really nice, because you had him and Bucky working on a piece of machinery, and it's that typical guys doing guy stuff. That ain't me. I'm not that typical. You know what I mean? If you want to fix a piece of machinery, do you know what? things go wrong in this house, and I look after the baby while Siobhan goes and fixes it.
Yeah, things go wrong in this house. They just stay wrong.
And she comes along and goes, I told you it wasn't, get out. And it was like, in kind of just turning that kind of macho-ness on its head.
Yeah.
But without even shouting about it, just doing it up front and blatant with no need to go, you men think that you did it. It's just there. It's just there.
It's just there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what I meant to say to you? Do you know who Isaiah Bradley's grandson was? Is it his grandson or nephew or...
Might be his grandson. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's someone, though, isn't he?
So he becomes there's a comic called Young Avengers, and he becomes Patriot.
Ah, okay.
Who is kind of young Captain America, really?
Right.
I suppose.
I wonder if that's setting up.
I wonder because I know they're moving towards a lot of the Young Avengers things because they've recently cast Kamala Khan, who is Miss Marvel.
Oh, okay.
And stuff. So I'm wondering if they're going that way.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, man.
It would, next generation. Maybe it's time to move on.
I quite liked him. The little bits you saw of him. I quite like the bit he's kind of playing basketball with his mate, and then Sam comes along and he's like, "Yeah, is that back? Yeah, I'll be along." You know what I mean? It's like I ain't leaving you with my pups for that long. Just so you know, you know what I mean?
He's squaring up to an Avenger, really.
Yeah, I'll be back, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, go on. But coming back forward again. So that was so moving on to this conversation with Bucky and Sam, and this conversation, something so important happens in this conversation, and this was another bit for me where I almost felt like crying, and I just almost felt weak because I just wanted to go, wow, you acknowledged something here, Bucky. Yeah, which I mean, you done said it out loud in a Marvel TV show, and I don't know if you're thinking the same thing as me. I don't know. What were you going to say? Because you started this bit of the conversation. I'll come back.
For me, it was the bit where he apologizes to Sam and said, when me and Steve, exactly, when me and Steve, me, two white dudes basically said, we're going to give the shield to a brother. We didn't even think for a second there's going to be any issues. Why would there be?
Oh, you know what? And I'm going, all right. So I'm going to be... I tend to err on the side of I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I excuse ignorance. I'm okay with ignorance. I'm not okay with willful ignorance. Once you learned, you better shape up.
Yeah.
Or if you refuse to learn, I ain't got no time for you. But if you don't know stuff, you don't know stuff. And what I loved here was this white man going, you know what? I was a bit ignorant here. And I didn't even think about it. Didn't even get a second thought. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Yeah. No excusing it. No drawn out excuses for getting it wrong. Just going, I was wrong. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Done. That's all I need. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just someone acknowledging this. It just, I can't even, it just made me feel all weird. And just to hear someone go, yeah. Because, you often, it reminded me of people go, I don't see colour. I'm like, stroll on, man. It don't see colour. Colour's important because people see my colour and I'm treated accordingly. And also, different colours mean different things. It means we're this beautiful, diverse world, and there's things we can learn from each other because we come from different places. We have different experiences. We have different influences. That's actually a beautiful thing. So don't go telling me you don't see it.
Yeah. I remember going to a couple of years ago. We were lucky enough. We got tickets. We went to Wimbledon, and two stories. So I was in my...
I know where this is at.
Yeah, I know. I was in my wedding suit. And for those who don't know, my wedding suit actually cost more than Sue's wedding dress. A fact she never lets me forget. Because it was like I wanted...
and anyone who knows Barry isn't surprised by that fact.
No, I know. So it was like it was a hand-tailored suit. So the suit was Chris, you know what I mean?
It was, I remember, I came with you to the fitting, didn't I?
Yeah. It was like fun, man.
This suit is bad, man.
Yeah. So you know the suit was quality. So...
And the lining was crazy.
Yeah, so I turned up. I remember, to begin with, I turned up at the hotel that we'd booked. It was quite an upmarket hotel, and I went into the hotel because Sue and the friends we had gone with none of whom were black, so this is important to the story. They were all parking. So I was like, oh, I'll go in and check our rooms and, blah, blah. I went in, and before they didn't even say, can I help you, sir? Blah, blah, blah. They basically said, what are you doing here? You minicab, you should be outside. And I was like, I'm not the minicab. Well, what are you here? And I was like, I've got a room booked here. And I saw her look at me as if to go, have you really? And I was like, Mr. Nugent. And then they looked it up. And the minute they saw my name there, as we both know, we've been there, boom, flip, change. Oh, Mr. Nugent. And it's, and then later on throughout the day, we were going into the different courts at Wimbledon and blah, blah, to the point of one of the friends I was with said to me, like, how are you not angry? Because every kind of bit you walk through where you got, sometimes they'll look in your bag or whatever, they would have spot search. Every single spot search, I was the only one that got pulled and taken off to the side and searched. And it gets to a point after the sixth time where you can't just go, it's just coincidence. Do you know what I mean?
And the thing is, and the problem is, it's not like any of that would have been surprising to you.
No. Hence why are you not more? And I'm just like, well, because you, if I go in there expecting it, I'm less disappointed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
We've both got that when we've attended stuff for Geek Syndicate.
So to like you say, to bring it back round, and we talked about this on one episode we did in the race, which we sadly lost to the joys of editing. And we kind of tell some of these stories, but I guess we haven't really spoken about them on the podcast. Doing GS and being out there. A lot of the times we were going to press events and blah, blah. We were the only black guys going to these press events. And again, 9 times out of 10, we went to the Gotham press event.
Do you know what? Sorry.
We went to walk through. Sorry, go on.
I just got, my WhatsApp is open as we're recording. And I've just, because it was the trial of the officers with George Floyd today.
Oh, yeah.
And just got this thing from one of my cousins going, officers found guilty on all charges.
All right.
Sorry, that was just a whole thing about feeling like nothing's changing.
Yeah.
But the problem being shit's still happening regardless of one. Anyway, sorry. So
we were saying, we went to walk through, we got called back, we had to provide credentials, all sorts. Everyone, whilst we were there, everyone else was just all the other white kind of media people, podcasters just walked on by whilst we were the ones getting held up. And then reinforcing the looks that we were getting from people as if to say, oh, look at those guys, they obviously clearly they've tried to pull a fast one, and then still getting more looks once we got in there as if to say, oh, okay, they've obviously just let them in. Then going to the SFX party, which we'd been invited by SFX and nearly being thrown out because they thought we'd blagged our way in. And again, we could go on with many other examples of what we faced doing Geek Syndicate. And one of the biggest things that we always used to face where we would do questions, and these were celebs or whatever, and they were the first thing they'd turn around and go, I didn't know there were black geeks. Which some people can laugh at, but when you've heard it 20 times, it stops being funny.
Do you know what? Do you remember when we were doing interviews after our BBC documentaries came out? We were doing interviews for local BBC radio stations, and the PR guy was chaperoning us, and he was sitting in the booth with us as we connected to different radio stations around the country, and you could see his face changing as he was listening to the questions, and then in between one he went, they don't know you're black, do they? And you could see it was the first time he considered that we wouldn't have got some of the questions that we got if people had thought that. Do you know? And you could see his face going, well, things are different to what I thought they were. Yeah. And like you say, the amount of times I go, I literally had it last week. So you're a geek? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, all right.
So bringing it back round, you know what I mean? So So obviously, so the scene between Bucky and Sam was a really important one.
Mm.
And I thought they did it well because they didn't overdo it. Like you said, it weren't big. I'm so sorry about X, Y, and Z, and da da da. It was just like we didn't even consider it. What this would mean for you. I'm sorry. And it actually, I was thinking to a certain extent, like, I mean, I get you apologizing, but I'm not sure. And then I remembered that actually he's been having a go at him from like day one.
About giving the shield away.
Yeah, giving the shield away. Do you know what I mean? Disrespecting Steve and blah blah blah. And it was kind of his. And you realise that as much as we're following Sam, Bucky been on the journey with Sam and seeing the conversations and seeing what's going down. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, shit, you know. And I thought that was really good. So now we get to it, right?
Mm.
We then get this sequence where basically Sam looks like taking up the mantle. So we get this wicked. I thought that I was in tears, man. You know I love a montage.
I know. I thought of you because
I love a training
Barry's
montage.
Gonna love a training montage.
You know what I mean? And you just get this training montage of a man who's like a human man. Yeah, he's ripped, but just training. You know what I mean? Just no super soldier serum, no nothing. Hold your horses. You know what I mean? No super soldier serum, just trading, and the music's going, and he's just trying to learn his craft. You know what I mean? And I love that. I just love that. And there's a sequence right at the end where he's got the shield. You know, he's got his two nephews, and one of them's like a little one. He's got big rimmed black glass. I mean, they're both wearing glasses, but he's got big rimmed black glasses, and he kind of touches the shield. I was in tears because going back to that earlier story I told about my dad and my brother's conversation, what I realized was for me, Sam, at the moment I realized for me, Sam was David and I was the nephew.
Yeah.
Because
you got the same glasses.
Because I got the same glasses, yeah. See, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? But I saw it, you know what I mean? To me, my brother was like a superhero because he was out there. He was, you know, and I've had, you know, I've had a lot of racism in my life, in my chosen profession. My literal first day on the job in IT, he says in inverted quotes, I got called a black bastard. My first day. You know, my manager was, everything come out of his mouth was something racist. He wasn't necessarily racist. That's a different conversation, but everything out of his mouth was, and I was like 17, you know, but I stuck it out because David stuck it out. And Dave was up there. Dave was working IT sport, doing really well. And I'm like, look, Dave got worse than I did. I need to stick this out. So he was my hero. All my brothers are my heroes. You know what I mean? If they're listening, you know, all my brothers are my heroes. They all gave me something to aspire to. But in some ways, we all aspired to be Dave. Because Dave was the template. Dave was the benchmark. And Dave was the guy who kind of like, you know what? I'm going to step into that arena. I don't care if you're not going to accept me. Because I need to be here. And I think that's what I took away from that. That Samson really kind of hit me. You know, so anyway, that's what I wanted to say in that bit.
I'm just listening to you, and I'm just thinking of, because I remember my dad said to me, he goes, "Listen, to get somewhere, you're going to have to work twice as hard as other people." And what was unsaid was that he had to work twice as hard as I have to.
Yeah, probably more so, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so, like you said, legacy is so important, and just, you know, and when you've been through that hardness, that attitude of why would you step into the white man's world, it's understandable. Because that was our generation of Caribbean parents came over to help, you know, build the Commonwealth. They saw Britain as the motherland, and they got it, and the majority of Britain was like, yeah, you can't even have a room in this place.
Yeah. Well,
and it was like, so they stepped fully into the white man's world and got spit in their face. So to go, why would you even want to do more than this? Is a totally understand. Now, you probably, a lot of people listening goes, well, I find that hard. Why don't you just go for this, you know, integration? Yeah, I'm with you. But when your heart has been burnt so badly, is it a surprise that people may think that way? I don't think it is.
But also as well, you want, I mean, I'm not a, you know what I mean? I'm not a father, but your parents want, not only do they want the best for you, they want to keep you safe. Do you know what I mean? And they don't want to see you heartbroken. So there's an element of almost managing expectations. Like, it's all great that you want to fly, but just, you know what I mean? Keep yourself to the ground, because you don't want to fly too hard, because you're going to fall hard, And we talked about this, our parents came to this country, and horror stories, my parents, like you said, being spat on, not being able to get rooms. That's why a lot of our community was in North London, was all together, because that was the only places they could get.
Yeah. The ghettos were created by the response to people coming who had been invited.
Yeah. And I think, and you said this, I think you said this after your dad passed, and I think for me, I always think about that, and it's kind of, we stand on the shoulders of giants.
I've always said that.
So whenever I get when people sort of go, yeah, but how do you put up with it all? Blah, because I think about my parents, they're both gone, but somewhere they're up there, or they're just somewhere, and I just think, and my brother, and I just think I will not denigrate their memory by not stepping out.
Yeah.
I won't do it. I'm not saying I don't get angry. I'm not saying there ain't days I sit at home and just like, well, you know what I mean? Another day of this, the little look because you stepped into the wrong place, or you've gone in a store and you've been followed around. I went into my local Marks and Spencer's. This is a couple of years back. This is a store I went into every day. I came out of that store. I got halfway home, and then I got pulled up by store detective asking me to empty out my bag, and I was like, because I dared to go in there and not buy anything, and I came out and they thought I'd stolen something from the shop. This is 2 years ago. I'm like 48. I was 48 at the time. You know what I mean? And it's that sort. It's not even the big things. This is, people don't understand. It's not the big things. It's not like me getting.
It's not even just the little things. It's the little things again and again.
Yeah.
And again, and again. And I just remember seeing, I think it was Question Time on TV, and there was some woman, and she was angry, and there was some white people in the audience going, why don't you calm down? Why don't you just calm down? And I'm a big fan of, actually calm down, because if you start shouting, people stop listening. So I'm all about trying to find the calm. But I was angry at this woman, telling this black woman to calm down, who had no understanding of what this black woman might have been through. And it's like, yeah, I'm all about being calm and replying. But if people are angry, there's usually a damn good reason.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And for people who sort of think, I don't know why you're not more angry all the time, I have to go back to the Hulk and go, you're getting it wrong. You know what I mean? I'm angry all the time. You know what I mean?
I would say, just because I'm smiling, don't and dropping a good cheese joke every now and again, don't think I'm not angry at stuff. I'm just having to find a way to channel it to still be productive and to make my points where I can, and to make my stand where I can.
Yeah. And we didn't realise this we will get back to we'll
get back to episode 5 of
to our scheduled programming. But we knew when we started this, it was going to go off on a tangent, But a lot of people don't know, just because we didn't want it to be like a big song and dance, whatever. But when we did the BBC shows, afterwards, the director said to us, "You do realise that it was something like halfway through the shoot, we were the first where it was two black male co-hosts for a show or something." And I was like, "Nah, that's nonsense." And then I kind of sat and thought about it, and I was trying to come up with some names, and I was struggling.
Yeah.
And so anyway, going back to this. So now comes, I think, the point in that obviously Sam is, I'm guessing, taking on the mantle of Captain America. It looks like we've still got an episode to go.
So there's a couple of things here. The first one I thought was Actually, I'll say, which way around do I do this? We had a chat earlier, or last week. We had a chat before this episode came out, and it was really interesting because you highlighted for me that because you're rewatching the Marvel films again,
Yes.
and you've just kind of done to the bit where they introduced Sam, and you kind of did, and you noticed that growth between both Sam and Steve Rogers. And the effect they were having on each other, and the fact that part of the reason that we think Steve handed over the shield to Sam was because he was learning from Sam.
Yeah, because it was the whole thing of in Winter Soldier, Sam was running a support group for vets, and then in Endgame, Cap was running a support group for the people left behind after the snap.
He'd learnt from Sam, and I was like, yeah, that's nice. And, you know, we talked about the character of Steve Rogers being that which sets apart a super soldier, the kind of super soldier that Zemo could almost live with. You know, and you said there's that bit where they had to make choices and they looked at Falcon, Sam, and said, what about you? And he goes, I just do what he does, but slower. And it's that thing of he's got that same moral, what's the word I'm looking for, that kind of moral standpoint, and he's growing into it.
Yeah.
Which is what will make him a great Captain America when the time is right. Now, my biggest problem...
It's going to be a practical one, isn't it?
Well, it's twofold.
Yeah.
So there's the practical one and there's the legacy one. And there's a thing of... I hate kind of legacy characters just kind of... So part of the problem is Marvel Comics have done a lot of, look, Thor's now a woman, Captain America's now black, and you go, number one, you've made a huge song and dance about it, and you've just shoved it on me, and I don't quite believe it. And more than that, I know that within a year, she won't be Thor and he won't be Captain America.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I know that, so I'm not buying you. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. However, what they've done in the MCU is they have built it, and with Captain America, with Winter Soldier and the Falcon, really, you're making me believe it's a good move because I'm seeing him grow into it. You're not just thrusting it. You're not just making me accept it. You're showing me Sam's growth into that role. And I saw this meme I thought was hilarious. It's got 3 pictures, and the first one's Steve Rogers holding the shield. And then it's John Walker with the shield, and then it's Sam just looking at the shield. And the first one with Steve Rogers goes, what America thinks it is. And the one with John Walker is what America actually is. And then the one with Sam goes, what America needs to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, that's
cold.
That's what a penetrating meme right there.
But also as well, when you talk about people earning things, so I watched it. So on my rewatch, the last thing I watched was Age of Ultron. I watched that weekend just gone, and there's a bit at the end where like Thor's left and Iron Man's left, and basically Captain America and like Black Widow, they walk out and they've got like a new team of Avengers, and it's Falcon, Scarlet Witch, and War Machine. And my first thought was, I ain't buying it. Do you know, that was my first thought, because I was kind of thinking, I don't feel like they've earned their spot, right? That was just my thought. And when we got to the end of Endgame, where like Cap gives Sam the shield, and Sam's like a bit uncomfortable with it, I kind of thought, this is what we talked about, if they dropped an Avengers film straight afterwards and Sam was there with the shield running about, I would have really struggled with it.
Yeah.
And for me, the fact that they've given him the breathing room with this series, if that's where we end up, I'm all good with it, because I know it's not been an easy road for him to do that. And I think even going forward, his growth ain't done. And something that me and you always talk about is this idea, like you say, going back to this idea of legacy, is rather than having, I'm going to move to DC, sorry people, but rather than having like a Batman that's been going for like, it feels like 200 years as Bruce Wayne. I ain't dissing Bruce Wayne, you know what I mean?
I love Bruce Wayne.
But what I'm saying is that having that idea, which they did for a limited time after you've got his back broke or whatever, you know, where you've got like your Dick Grayson stepping into that role, which he's kind of been groomed for anyway.
Yeah.
I like that idea, because that's the idea of legacy. I
like the moving on. And I always say my favourite character is the Question. He dies of cancer, hands it on. And the way he does it is like, there's no coming back. He's done. And she's inheriting it in her own right. She's earned the right. You see their journey together, and she's earned it. And then he dies, and he's gone. And I'm like, that's my favorite character. I reckon there's many more question stories to tell, but he's gone.
Yeah,
I'll accept that, and I'll see where we go now. Unfortunately, being comics, they kind of brought him back.
Yeah. But then I was talking to someone about Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones 5 is out next year, whatever, and Harrison Ford was like 80 or whatever, and people talking about recasting the role. Now, look, if they recast the role, I ain't gonna throw my toys at the pram. I don't really care. I know my indie, it's all good, right? But also in terms of legacy, is what I've been saying for years, right? Just bring in short rounds.
Yeah.
And then just start doing short round adventures.
Groomed for the role.
Short round and the blah, blah, blah. It's all set. He was basically a mini indie in Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I love that idea of a mantle, and it doesn't have to be literal. You don't have to put short round in an indie costume for it to be a legacy passing on in the same way that Sam doesn't have to be running around exactly in a Captain America. Yes, he can have the shield, but it doesn't have to be in a Captain America outfit. Which brings me to your next point and my rebuttal.
Okay, so I'll get my point. So my first point was, why would you? I mean, you sending John Walker into battle to fight super people, and he ain't got no powers. He's just good at what he does. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's the same thing with Black Widow and with Hawkeye. And I get that, but they've all kind of got their shtick and whatever. But Falcon is the Falcon. Falcon has a proud legacy of his own. So when they made him Captain America, I hated that because you've handed off someone else's legacy when he's got his own legacy. If he was not a superhero, but someone who had, who'd been mentored by Captain America, I'm like, yeah, but he's his own person. The Falcon is a black character with history. And I'm like, don't send the Falcon out. Don't put the Falcon out to dry. Do you know what I mean? And suddenly becomes, I don't know, that didn't sit well with me. But coming back to the practicalities, so you're sending Sam into battle with no powers. It's like that bit where he was fighting with Bucky against John Walker, and I was like, the reason he held his own was because he had the wings and he used them well. And I don't care how good the shield is and how good he is with it. That's not enough.
Yeah. So,
and in my mind, he needs to retain something of the Falcon as Captain America as well.
So my rebuttal is kind of part rebuttal, part one. I agree with because actually he's done such a good job as the Falcon. There's even a bit when he's ringing around getting people, hey, Mr. Falcon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I haven't got a problem with him having Cap shield and kind of taking on the legacy, taking on the mantle, albeit in spirit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But still being the Falcon, if that also makes sense. I kind of mix between the two, but not necessarily I'm now Captain America. It's kind of like I got the shield, so I'm bringing his legacy, merging it with my own. So I'm kind of like, I don't know, Falcon America. I don't know,
Falcon America,
Falcon America, the American Falcon or something. I don't know. See, the American Falcon, I could get behind that. But so that's thing number one. Thing number two, I was with you and I was thinking to myself, how are they going to do this? And then Bucky rocks up with a case from Wakanda.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, one, right? That's a suit. End of. That's a suit in that case.
Yeah.
Right? Two, we know for a fact when the Wakandans build shit, they build shit to last. Right?
Yeah.
Tree. See, I'm getting hardcore by saying tree and not tree.
I got you.
Right? That suit is going to be bulletproof. It's going to be strength enhancing, like Black Panther suit.
Good point.
Yeah, it's going to drop it like the Iron Man suit almost. It's going to enhance him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point.
4, we don't know, that suit might have wings.
Yeah, I hope so. No, do you know what? I hope so.
So that's what I was waiting for. I had my rebuttal once, man. That's what, and I think if they do that, I'm all good. Because to me, if they just give him a sparkly suit, but they don't do that, then he's going to be struggling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can live with that. And I was thinking, how you gonna make it look good and have wigs? Do you know what I mean? And I suppose that's the big reveal we're waiting for now.
Yeah, and I think it's a very, very clever and smart touch that it's the Wakandans that build him a new suit.
Yeah.
That is like, that's chef's kiss. He's like, that's nice, man. And can we just give a big up to the Wakandans in this?
Oh man, they were just. I mean, I don't even know what to say.
They just that's how you drop in some cameos, man.
They just turned up, did business, went home.
Yeah, and also as well, fair play. Cause I didn't know how they were going to do it. End it with Zemo, and I thought he had a really good arc, and I really liked the fact that when Bucky turned up, and it made out like he was going to kill him, and Zemo was just kind of prepared for it, and he just dropped the bullets, and then you just see the Wakandans turn up. He was just like, you know what, it's all good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, it's all good, man. It's all good. I hear you. You got to do. It's all good. I'm all good. Cross my name off. It's all cool. I'll go quietly. You know what I mean? I liked him, man. I thought they used him really well, and he never became what I thought he was gonna be, which was that kind of almost like Loki type villain, where he's like, I've got out of it, and you know, I'm going to be screwing you over at every turn, and he just wasn't.
Yeah. The thing is, every time he talked, he was genuine.
Yeah. He wasn't even trying to, and like you say, with Loki, he's always messing with you, you know. And what I liked about him, he was straight down the line. And like I said, the whole conversation when he was talking about, you know, superhuman and supremacists and Nazis and the Avengers, and you were like, by the end of it, you were kind of stroking your chin, like, boy, dude's got a point, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have to, and I thought what was good about bringing in the Wakandans, because he had to be reminded that, he also killed Black Panther's dad. He's like, hold up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, you come with your moral stance.
You know what I mean?
Your own actions are a complete negation of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the same as the Flag Smashers.
Yes. You know, again have go on.
No, I'm just saying they are not wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it is they want.
Yeah, me too, man.
What do you want to actually happen now?
Maybe we'll find that in episode 6.
I want it back like it was, but how would that happen?
Yeah, pretty sure Thanos is gone now.
Yeah.
No amount of clicking is bringing that dude back, man. So, I think we've kind of said quite a lot.
What needs to be said?
Yeah, I think we've said what needs to be said on that episode. Yeah. I think that's pretty much the most in-depth review we've ever done of an episode of anything.
Yeah, no, for real. So there we go.
So yeah, one more episode. Gotta say, really looking forward to it.
Is it only one?
Yeah, 6 episodes, mate.
Oy.
6 and done.
Do you know what? This is kind of what I've been asking for as well, and yet I still feel like, what?
Yeah. Before we like you round up, would you like to see another Falcon Winter Soldier series, or would you be happy with, like, you know what, we've got a kind of effectively 6-hour movie?
I wouldn't mind seeing some more, but if this is it, I'm satisfied.
Yeah, same there.
That's because that's something else I've also been asking for. It's just I don't need series to go on and on and on and on. Give me something good. Move on. I mean, there's so many properties. Let's see what's next.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's movies. You can bring all of those things to bear. You can bring them in, whatever. And like you said, if he is becoming Captain America now, with this series, you've made me believe it rather than just chucking it at me. Do you know what I mean?
They've given so much. They've given, like, both of them, but they've given both of those characters so much room to grow in this series.
We didn't even talk about Sharon Carter, but we can leave that for another time because that's involved. Man.
That is involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, round us up,
So we have put our hearts out, and I think we both feel a bit emotional, a bit drained. I could actually use a drink if I actually had any in the house.
Yeah.
But yeah, why don't you let us know how you found the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? And I feel it's really interesting having something like this come straight after WandaVision. So how's it been for you? And I know some people jumped ship after the first couple episodes, which I can understand. I can't really, but I do. But just let us know how you've been finding it. And you know how to do that. The geeks at geeksyndicate.co.uk. Check out the website, geeksyndicate.co.uk. Find us on Instagram, on where are we else? Facebook, Twitter, and if you feel the need to buy us a cup of coffee, you can do that at ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com, or on Patreon. We would be very grateful for all those that support us. So yeah, thank you for listening. If you're still here at the end, and we'll see you next time. Geek Syndicate, we out.